When the HOA police come for my beloved flamingos, I realize it's not just about lawn decor, it's a battle for individuality against the tyranny of suburban conformity. Can I outsmart Karen and reclaim my freedom? The sun had barely finished yawning its way into the sky, casting golden rays over my backyard oasis where my trusty flamingos stood guard, pink, proud, and a tad sassy. The tranquility of my Saturday morning was a symphony of chirping birds and the alluring aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Just as I expertly swirled my drink, contemplating how best to enjoy a well-deserved weekend with my inflatable pool floaties and some classic detective novels, an insistent knock on the door shattered my zen like a poorly thrown rock into a serene lake. Who on earth, I mused, would dare interrupt my solitude? As I opened the door, my heart sank straight into my coffee mug. There stood the HOA police, exuding entitlement and absurdity in ill-fitting uniforms that looked like they had survived some long-ago thrift store massacre. These so-called enforcers of home decor rights flashed badges that had all the charm of an expired coupon. The taller of the two, armed with a haughty brow and a pomposity fit for a cartoon villain, launched straight into an accusation about my flamingos. Not just any flamingos, mind you, but my beloved lawn ornaments that had been the butt of many friendly barbs from neighbors. Apparently, Karen, the supreme commander of neighborhood morality, had riled up the troops to come after my audaciously bright lawn decor. I could almost hear the ominous swell of a dramatic score as foghorns of disbelief echoed in my mind. They actually thought they could intimidate me, Alex Rivera, private eye with a flair for justice. Oh, how delightfully absurd. With a flick of my wrist, I brushed aside the overwhelming urge to roll my eyes so hard they might fall out. Instead, I welcomed the gaudy duo with an exaggerated cheerfulness that only further fueled my inner detective. Wow, thank you so much for this off-the-cuff theatrical presentation, I exclaimed, barely containing my smirk. You truly have the makings of a premier misguided comedy duet. As their confusion unfolded across their faces like a badly timed magic trick, I reveled in the moment. No one, especially not a pair of wannabe warriors in crisp polyester, was going to take my beloved flamingos from me without a fight. I leaned forward, arms crossed over my trusty leather jacket, ready to battle this HOA incursion with all the gumption of a seasoned sleuth. Next, I unwrapped the luscious layers of a little investigative charm. Now tell me, dear officers of the HOA, what precisely is the violation? Is there a strict limit on kitschiness per square foot in our neighborhood? Or have Karen's inflated ego and habitual scowling performed the equivalent of some warped law-making magic? I punctuated my questions with an animated flourish that would make even Broadway stars proud. At this, my unwelcome guests shifted uncomfortably, the tension thick enough to slice with a butter knife. The shorter member of the duo cleared his throat, likely regretting every moment of this bizarre excursion into flamingo territory, while his partner desperately tried to pull together some semblance of authority. What a wonderfully tragic comedy this was turning out to be. As the absurdity peaked, I caught a glimmer of movement from the corner of my eye. Tim, my cheerful neighbor who embodied the spirit of let's chill and make music, had emerged from his yard, wielding a spatula as he flipped pancakes on his grill. Wide-eyed, he stifled laughter at the sight of the HOA police standing before my flamingo brigade. "What's the commotion about, Alex? Some sort of HOA theme party?" he chimed in, grinning ear to ear. With that, the scene took a comedic turn, as if someone had decided to direct a sitcom episode with an unexpected laugh track. I gestured to Tim, soaking in his easygoing energy, empowered by his presence. Oh yes, he was the bright spot in this otherwise humorless HOA debacle, and together we could create a masterpiece. Gathering my strength and a touch of theatrical flair, I turned back to my uninvited guests. Gentlemen, I do appreciate your efforts in maintaining our neighborhood's aesthetic integrity, but allow me to introduce you to Exhibit A, my lawn flamingos, proudly representing freedom of expression and a dash of whimsy in an otherwise dull suburban landscape. With a dramatic flair, I pointed to my pink friends, who stood like sentries overlooking our tiny kingdom. Each flamingo was an ornate masterpiece, but I could see the HOA squad nervously sweat beneath the glare of their own polyester. Suddenly, my yard transformed into a stage, and the world was my audience. The taller officer, barely able to suppress irritation, took a deep breath and mumbled something about guidelines, but I wasn't ready to let this comedic duel simply fizzle out. "Guidelines, my friend. Isn't that just fancy jargon for way too uptight? You've got to be kidding me." I laughed with just the right amount of sarcasm. "Can't I have a little flair?" After all, isn't life too short to live in a colorless monochrome? Just look at them. They're practically begging for a festival. My charismatic charisma was beginning to wear them down, and I could almost envision tiny cracks forming in their austere armor of seriousness. If nothing else, my flamingos were succeeding in their role as comedic relief in this HOA horror story. As I stood amidst my vibrant front yard rebellion, reveling in the ridiculousness of the situation, I couldn't help but wonder, how far would I be willing to go to defend my fabulous flamingos? There was momentum in the air, an exhilarating rush coursing through me like a detective adrenaline shot. Was it time to go full detective mode and investigate the very roots of this Karen-fueled extravaganza? Would this be merely the opening act before I waged war against my HOA adversary? Oh yes, the absurdity was thick enough to slice into amusing morsels, and I was ready to prepare the next course in this culinary chaos of neighborhood drama. Fueled by a blend of audacity and caffeine, I burst into a whirlwind of investigation mode. After all, this was about more than mere flamingos. It was about standing my ground against the tyrannical grip of a woman named Karen. The command she exerted over our HOA made it sound like we were living in some dystopian nightmare, where color and creativity were shunned, much like bad dance moves at a wedding. A swift pivot had me headed for my modest home office, a veritable treasure trove of community guidelines, legal codes, and documents I had cleverly stashed away over my years of mediating neighborhood disputes. Propped against my desk like a conquering warrior, I gleefully compared myself to a bounty hunter, armed not with guns, but with paper clips and highlighters that clashed in a cacophony of vibrant colors, much like my flamingos. Scouring through the reams of unreadable text, I reveled in the irony of what some might call a neighborhood bylaw. I gathered nuggets of information with the fervor of a detective sniffing out a steamy scandal. Clearance for a garden gnome? Check. Permission for bumper stickers? Check. And then, a breakthrough. I found a glorious, glittering paragraph of goodness at the heart of it all. A clause that gave homeowners the right to express their individuality through their landscaping choices. Take that, Karen! I grabbed my highlighter like an ink-stained sword, circling, underlining, and nesting diamonds around the phrase that would serve as my shield in this flamingo-fueled battle. Oh, what a glorious battlefield this would be! A stage for my stand against Karen's entitlement. Energized by my findings, I decided to strategize a theatrical comeback that would leave the HOA duo quaking in their polyester boots. Waving my arms in exaggerated motions, I envisioned myself as a courtroom toughie before an expectant jury. "Doors are but a portal to eclecticism," I shouted dramatically at the wall, where my loyal flamingos apparently rallied in silent agreement. My comeback would be spectacular. A performance akin to Broadway delivered with the flair of a detective. I would serve justice not just for my flashy flock, but for every neighbor who had felt the unyielding weight of Karen's self-appointment as moral overseer. I put my plan into action, glancing nervously at my reflection in the window, half expecting my own superhero theme music to cue up in the background. With determination and a healthy sprinkle of mischief, I marched out my front door once again to confront the HOA police. This time, there was a plan nestled in my pocket along with my detective credentials, ready to unfold like a magician's finest trick. "Behold, the Flamingo Coalition!" I called out, waving my arms wide to reveal the true protagonists of the show. Each pink figure was a sparkling monument to democracy and self-expression in our curiously absurd neighborhood. The officers blinked, surprise written all over their faces, as if suddenly realizing they'd stumbled into a circus performance rather than a civil complaint. I swore I saw Tim do a little happy dance off to the side, flipping pancakes with asynchronous enthusiasm, his laughter spilling into the scene like music. "Now, since we're all about the guidelines here," I continued, my voice nodding itself into the melodic rhythm of a preacher at a revival meeting, "let's discuss individuality as a core tenet of community living. I have the right to express myself freely, complete with colorful flamingo decor. It's practically in the HOA charter." With that, I fished the well-highlighted document from my pocket, raising it high as if it were the Declaration of Independence itself. The expressions on their faces twisted from indignation to sheer befuddlement, as if someone had just thrown ice water on a group of cats. My confidence climbed, swelling like a balloon, filled to the brim with hope, humor, and a good dash of rebellion. The taller officer fidgeted, actually breaking out in a sweat. We just want to enforce the rules," he grimaced, staring at my flamingos as if they were extraterrestrial creatures, particularly as one swayed slightly, thanks to the gentle breeze. "Oh, please," His flimsy rationale was slipping faster than a toddler's ice cream cone on a summer day. "I'm sure you mean well," I replied, flipping my hair theatrically. "But just because Karen says something doesn't make it law. Last I checked, we live in America, a place brimming with quirks and colorful lawn decor." Each word punctuated by the soft clamor of Tim's pancake flipping, his cheeriness acting as the bread to my righteous toast. At this point, the stage was set, and the crowd, aka my flamingos and Tim, was thoroughly engaged as I stood there as a beacon of shining justice. I raised my voice, channeling the festivity of a closing rant overflowing with purpose. "So let's put all pretenses aside and discuss what truly matters. My vibrant flamingos are a celebration of life and individuality that should reign supreme in this dreary suburb. The only actionable violation occurring here is Karen being a drag about it." My words hung in the air, a liberating breeze drifting through the scene of sparkly conviction, joining forces against the oppressive cloud of HOA authoritarianism. Was this it? Would the HOA duo choose to retreat like defeated comic book villains, or was I about to launch into war with Karen herself? The anticipation arched in the air like the playful twist of a mystery novel. I could hardly wait to find out what absurd turn of events would transpire next. There was no stopping my inner detective now. I'd assemble my evidence, commandeer my flamingos, and put Karen's community anathema directly under the spotlight. Would the stage hold up against the weight of my righteous fury, or would it topple, offering the most dramatic of conclusions? The potluck was an eruption of culinary experimentation, a buffet of casseroles that seemed to defy the laws of chemistry, and neither Karen nor I were about to miss our moment on this vibrant stage. As I approached the table laden with questionable dips and spirited macaroni salads, I could feel the prying eyes of our HOA neighbors boring into me like a pair of magnifying glasses on an anthill. I plastered a confident smile on my face and dared to casually approach Karen, whose expression was a blend of indignation and disbelief. This was not just confrontation. I was about to become the starring act in a drama of epic proportions. "Karen, darling, can we have a little chat?" I sang, voice dripping with sugary sweetness while my thoughts screamed like a banshee in the night. It was time to put her entitlement under my spotlight, where theatrics met sharp rhetoric in a collision only the cosmos could orchestrate. Her face flushed, turning the shade of an overripe tomato as I shoved a plate of oddly colored mini quiches toward her. "Oh, I see you're enjoying the culinary genius that is Tim's creative cooking," I said, feigning sincerity while imagining me delivering a comedic monologue. "I personally think it's all about individual expression around here. Isn't that why you directed the flamingo investigation in the first place?" My eyes were twinkling with mischief as I leaned in, waiting for the eruption. She spluttered, "This isn't about those ridiculous lawn ornaments. It's about community standards." Ah, the beginning of her defeat. She had tossed me the golden opportunity I was searching for. "Community standards?" I repeated incredulously, letting out a dramatically exaggerated scoff that sent Tim into an uncontrollable fit of laughter behind me. I relished the tension in the air, a cocktail of whispered gossip, as I delivered my lethal retort like a well-aimed dart. "Karen, I'm afraid I can't let you be the sole arbiter of taste in this neighborhood. Last time I checked, this was a community, not a museum exhibit." The laughter from our spectators, the neighbors weaving in and out of fate's thread in their custom aprons, support their acknowledgement of my well-placed confidence. But I still needed my pièce de résistance to rattle her decorum, so I leaned in closer, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "You know, entitlement looks a bit like that last quiche you brought, hardly appetizing and laced with bad intention." The small gathered throng couldn't contain their chuckles, and suddenly, Karen's stern facade began to crack. The intensity of the potluck shifted, and I could feel the collective excitement of the neighborhood brewing. It was as if we were all caught in a soap opera unfolding right before our eyes. Karen's mouth twitched, floundering in disbelief. "You're going too far, Alex. This isn't a joke," she asserted, trying to regain her image as the HOA overlord, but the playful glimmer in her eyes betrayed her authority. "Oh, please," I shot back, grinning as I waved my hand dramatically. "If we're serious about community, then how about we embrace a little flair? When was the last time a flamingo saved the day? I'm just saying, I have evidence to back up my claim, right here." The highlighter-laden document was now a flag of rebellion, waving proudly against the winds of conformity. It was deliciously cathartic to witness the tide turn, Karen's depraved authority crumbling under the weight of my sparkling argument. "You're not a detective, Alex. You're just playing dress-up with those ridiculous lawn ornaments," she shouted, her voice rising above the murmur of escalating amusement. But I had sheathed my emotional sword. The real joy was knowing I had the crowd on my side, sweet yet spicy, like the perfect salsa. "Oh, Karen," I cooed, nearly bursting with glee. "I am not playing dress-up. I'm merely inspiring those around me to define a new vision of our beauty standards. And if that includes bright pink flamingos, so be it." The neighbors erupted into laughter, and I felt every bubbly chuckle swell in my chest, tugging at the corners of my perpetual smirk. Tim, forever the supportive sidekick, channeled his inner entertainer and brought my emotional momentum to new heights. "Karen, darling, we all know the real reason for your crusade against the flamingos stems from deep-rooted jealousies." He waved his spatula like a maestro, his warm charisma electrifying the atmosphere. I caught Karen's eyes widen, furrowing her brow in disbelief at the unfolding camaraderie. Was it possible that the shame of being less than adored was finally melting her icy exterior? "Instead of dimming our color, let's paint our community in all its quirky glory," Tim proclaimed, his bright smile acting as a beacon of positivity. The tension dissolved into the most delightful laughter, an orchestra of chuckles that momentarily quieted the horror of Karen's penalties. My mind raced. Here was the chance. "So what do you say, Karen?" I challenged, raising my eyebrows playfully. "Do you want to paint a dystopian future of beige conformity? Or do you seek to sprinkle our lovely suburb with the vibrant hues of creativity?" Watching her grappling with the impact of cheerful rebellion was a sight for sore eyes, an enthralling game of poker with high stakes. Could she navigate her way back from this rubble? Or was she still resolute in the fantasy of her HOA dictatorship? And in that suspenseful moment, she opened her mouth to respond, words swirling in a verbal tornado. As the crowd drew closer, breath caught in collective anticipation, it felt as if I held the fate of our little commune in my hands. Would Karen choose the path of absurd bureaucracy and disdain, or would her resolve be softened like butter on warm toast? The air was charged with expectation, and I stood ready to battle, armed with wit and a highlighter, ready to remind her that defending individuality means sometimes being a little ridiculous. What would it be, Karen? Would you embrace the joyful chaos of flamingos, or was I destined to be a lone soldier in this unauthorized HOA crusade? My heart raced, and the absurdity tasted like delicious irony, awaiting her answer with bated breath. The moment hung thick in the air, the kind of tension usually reserved for soap operas when the villain is presented with their ultimate choice. Do they reveal their nefarious plan or fess up to their inadequacies? I waited, eyebrows arched, the crowd of neighbors hanging on my every word, or possibly just amused by the unfolding drama. Karen's overripe tomato complexion drained slightly, and I could almost hear the gears in her mind churning with indignation. Was she scrambling to save her reputation? Pouty lips pursed in a desperate pout. I half expected her to launch into a Shakespearean soliloquy about the evils of colorful flamingos and their direct threat to the very fabric of community living, all while clenching a plate of sad mini quiches like they were her last defense. But, instead, she faltered, gathering her breath like someone about to make a grand speech at a political rally that would leave no stone unturned. She spluttered, her voice rising like a deflated balloon. "You think humor can overshadow rules?" The stubborn edge in her tone flared. Oh, how delicious this was. This was the point where I could either go for the jugular or offer a diplomatic hand. However, diplomacy and I were never on speaking terms, so the jugular it was. "Humor doesn't overshadow rules, Karen. It illuminates the absurdity of them," I interjected, reveling in the echo of laughter that scattered across our audience like confetti in the wind. "Don't you think it's time we stop pretending to be something we're not? This isn't a 1950 sitcom, it's a living, breathing community, and it's about time we embraced a little chaos." Tim, the ever-dreamy peacekeeper, leaned against the snack table as though it was his trusty steed, ready to ride into battle at a moment's notice. "Yeah, Karen," he chimed in, flipping his floppy hair as he sipped from a fluorescent pink smoothie, the image of relaxed rebellion. "I mean, look around. We have sinking quiches, questionable potato salads, and flamingos trapped in existential crises. Why not embrace the ridiculousness?" His voice bounced with his undeniable charm, and the gathering erupted into a cacophony of laughter, the tension dissipating like morning fog. I could feel the tide turning. Karen's rein was wobbling beneath her tailored blouse, and I couldn't resist the impulse to push a little harder, feed the flames of this poetic justice that was sweeping through my fellow residents. "Oh, please, sit down, Karen," I exclaimed, gesturing towards an empty chair glowing brightly like the sun amidst these culinary horrors. "Why not take a moment to reflect on the fact that not everyone has to conform to your rigid interpretations of proper? You know what's not proper? Boring sandwiches and beige walls. We are a community of individuals. We should celebrate our quirks. Each word dripped with enthusiasm, my passion igniting the flames of their laughter even more. In my mind's eye, I could already see posters for the Flamingo Freedom Coalition, complete with bright pink pamphlets and snazzy fonts. This was more than HOA rebellion. This was about reclaiming our fun. But Karen, blessedly stubborn, regained her footing in what looked like a valiant battle of wills. "I find this all incredibly unprofessional," she declared, her hands gesturing with such fervor I thought she might conjure invisible powers to vanquish our flamingo fantasies. Where did this riotous behavior come from? I've never seen anything like it. Ah, sweet irony coursed through my veins. The very woman who had started all this drama was now feigning horror at the very spectacle she had forged. "Professionalism is overrated, Karen," I replied, my voice almost melodic with joy. Said the woman who considers HOA Police as an actual career path. "We are allowing creativity to flourish, and all we need is a little pink, a little laughter. Let's make this neighborhood a canvas instead of a colorless canvas of conformity." At this point, I was ready. The spotlight was on me, and I was a detective in my element, gathering evidence of support from my neighbors who were now nodding fervently. It transformed into a rallying cry, and each enthusiastic agreement from the gathering felt like a battle victory sweetly won. Imagine flamingo decorations interspersed with disco balls, craft fairs every month, and karaoke night on Fridays. A neighborhood of vibrant lifestyles instead of a dull compilation of sleepwalking zombies, all afraid of stepping away from the color of their beige yards. What do you say, everyone? With that, I made eye contact with the neighbors. Their gleeful expressions were glimmering like gold coins in my favor. The crowd erupted with a chorus of cheers and laughter, like the sweet song of rebellion echoing through the air. Their approval lit up the twilight around us. Karen, momentarily pushed into the background, looked like a deer in headlights, desperately attempting to find her footing in this spontaneous uprising that she had unwittingly sparked. Maybe she thought she could sweep us back under the rug of conformity, but by now, we were tap dancing on that very rug while splattering it with Technicolor paint. "So Karen," I said with a twinkle in my eye, "will you embrace these vibrant changes, or will you stand with your mini quiches and authority?" And with that, all eyes were on Karen. Would she relent to this vibrant tapestry of community, or would she attempt to tighten the reins on our joyous rebellion? It was a colorful showdown that was about to take a dramatic twist. A dramatic silence fell over the gathering, punctuated only by the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of a cricket. It was as if the universe paused to watch Karen, the self-appointed overseer of our HOA, desperately searching for the right words. It brought me immense satisfaction to see her jaw working like a puppet's, back and forth, without actually articulating any coherent thoughts. In that moment, I couldn't figure out whether to feel pity or glee. Here she was, the guardian of compliance, cornered by her own creation, and everyone could see it. It reminded me of the classic moments in horror films where the expected twist leaves the villain stumbling as they realize the heroes are far more powerful than they ever imagined. I had to keep my cool, after all, the stakes were high. As if on cue, Tim, who had been snacking on mini quiches, serving as both a culinary joke and a security blanket, decided it was his time to shine. "You know, Karen," he began, with that laid-back vibe of his that could convince anyone to wear shorts in a blizzard. "What if we took this opportunity to make our community a unique place to live, instead of a beige mausoleum for rule followers?" The crowd erupted into approving murmurs and someone shouted, "Yeah!" Like a whirlwind of pure charisma, Tim was spinning us all into a revolution, and I looked on, both amused and proud. Who knew the art of rebellion could be as simple as ordering takeout? Meanwhile, Karen's expression was shifting from indignation to bewilderment. I could see her inner monologue unraveling. Were the neighbors actually rallying behind this blatant disregard for the rules? It was the kind of realization that might send most people into a spiral of righteous indignation. It was a full-on opera unfolding right before my eyes, and I had front-row seats. The dramatic irony couldn't be richer. Here was Karen, the queen of conformity, about to be dethroned by a bunch of mini quiche guzzlers and an enthusiastic dog person who wasn't afraid to bark back. Oh, how the tables hadn't just turned. They had flipped dramatically, like a season finale that left audiences gasping in disbelief. Taking advantage of the chaos, I marched right up to Karen, making sure to maintain eye contact as if we were two gladiators in an ancient arena. "Listen, let's cut the theatrics. It's clear to everyone here that you feel threatened by a little creativity. But isn't that the whole point of living in a community? It's not just about rules, it's about the people and the relationships we build. My voice crescendoed, ringing with the conviction of a soap opera star delivering an epic monologue about friendship and freedom. I could see small nods turning into full-blown head bobs and wide-eyed grins as the crowd soaked in the rallying call. Wouldn't it be amazing, I thought, if we could turn the HOA into a carnival instead of a courtroom? In that moment, Karen visibly deflated like an overcooked souffle, her fury dimming as expressions of moral superiority crumbled like the crust of her beloved quiches. But what about maintaining order? Guidelines are put in place to, she stammered, struggling to hold her ground against the refreshing tide of enthusiasm washing over her. Order? I interrupted, waving a hand leisurely dismissive. Isn't thinking outside the box the real essence of community? Yes, I have a dog who barks. Yes, I might paint my fence bright pink, and you can't stop it. We all deserve a chance to express ourselves. Just look at Tim, his floppy hair radiating joy and freedom. I could see the stifled chuckles bubbling up amongst our neighbors. We were winning. The atmosphere morphed from that of a tense standoff to a late-night talk show filled with laughter and playful banter. Karen stood there, disarmed and unsure, while her pretensions flailed clumsily like a fish out of water. You can't just throw out the rules like yesterday's trash, she finally managed. You can't just... But the crowd had lost interest in her frantic appeals. It was too late. We were all boarding this community party bus and rocking out to our own rhythm. The rebellion had metamorphosed into something joyous. Was this what it felt like to be a true detective? To unravel the mysteries of neighborhood dramas and make art out of chaos? Exactly. Who decided that matching lawn gnomes and beige houses were the pinnacle of appropriate? I yelled, my voice a blend of passion and sarcasm. More laughter roared from the audience, swelling like tidal waves of support crashing against the solid wall of Karen's fading authority. Let's make it vibrant. Let's have a flamingo parade. The idea fluttered through the crowd, allowing vivid imaginations to run wild. Flamboyant decorations, cozy fire pits, maybe even a yearly Flamingo Film Festival showcasing everything from horror flicks to critically acclaimed indies. What do you say, Karen? Are you willing to join us in embracing some color? I stood there gleaming with the thrill of triumph, ready for whatever Karen might throw my way. Would she succumb to our surreal brand of community chaos, or double down on her rules with a meticulously crafted outline? Whatever was coming, I was prepared, a detective trained to decode the absurdities of life. The anticipation was palpable, and I could practically hear the proverbial clock tick down to the grand reveal. What would the next act reveal in our outlandish HOA saga? The silence that followed my flamboyant proclamation of a vibrant neighborhood was electric, as if a chorus of invisible strings pulled taut around us, waiting for someone, anyone, to catapult this moment into infectious chaos. A faint tension hung in the air. Could this be the moment Karen threw her proverbial gavel? But I had learned in my years as a private detective that people, like cases, are often full of surprises. With a sidelong glance at Tim, who had turned a mini quiche into a makeshift microphone, I could see the flickers of mischief reflecting in the eyes of our neighbors. It was the kind of look I'd recognize in an ally, a silent agreement igniting us all to fight the absurdity of Karen's rule-laden reign. Would she, our foe, fearsome HOA overlord, be able to withstand the burgeoning comedy show unfolding right before her? Flamingo Film Festival? Karen repeated incredulously, her bravado flickering like a dying light bulb. The idea had caught her off guard, and for a brief, shining moment, the guardian of compliance appeared uncharacteristically vulnerable. You can't just transform this community into a circus. What's next? Yoga on the lawns, she snapped, her voice edged with both disbelief and the slightest hint of concern. Oh, how I wished for popcorn at that moment. In the courtroom of chaotic villages, where the absurd found its home, I stood ready to present the undeniable case for transformation. Why not? I challenged. Yoga is great for community bonding. And really, what is more bonding than showing your fellow neighbors your downward dog? The crowd erupted into laughter. It was like pouring gasoline on a smoldering bonfire. The heat was undeniable, and I could feel a glorious inferno of camaraderie blooming around me. As laughter rippled through the gathering, a wave of confidence coursed through me. In that beautiful moment, it was clear this facade of Karen's dictatorship could wither away under the relentless rays of our renewed spirit. You know, Karen, I pressed, weaving a thread of persuasion into the air. Maybe you could harness that enthusiasm instead of resisting it. Imagine this community hosting events that bring us together rather than keeping us apart. Picture it. Local artisans displaying their work, potlucks that could rival any food festival or spontaneous dance-offs. Each suggestion painted brighter colors over her stiff rulebook, fabricating a landscape where the only thing fading was Karen's credibility. On some level, I needed her to understand that order meant little if it came at the cost of joy. Amidst the uproar of chuckles and clinks of wine glasses, I caught a glimpse of Tim giving an exaggerated thumbs up from the back of the crowd, balancing two quiches like oversized trophies in his hands. His spirit alone could mend fences, but now we were ready to tear up this HOA revolution. And think about it. If we introduce a one-time Express Yourself art fair, even you might discover a hidden talent for painting flamingos or sculpting macaroni art, I exclaimed, my voice rising with theatrical delight. Karen's brows knitted tighter, but a trembling corner of her mouth hinted at an uprising of mirth. Could I sense a smidgen of her iconic disapproval cracking? From her stern intolerance of the unexpected emerged a tentative shaft of humor, and for a moment, the icy walls of Argus-eyed authority threatened to shatter. Then she straightened herself like a soldier ready for battle. "But we can't just abandon the restrictions," she protested, brandishing a pamphlet like a shield, almost as if it were a precious scroll from the ancient HOA past. It was comical and pathetic to observe her grasping to salvage the remains of her crumbling empire of pettiness. "Of course we can't," I quipped with unabashed sarcasm, "but rules are best when they serve the community, not stifle creativity. Rules are like the salad dressing of neighborhood life. A little can flavor it, but too much, it turns everything into a soggy mess." I could feel the tide shifting, the crowd's dedication building momentum like a churning ocean, just waiting to crash down upon her. The absurdity of it all made my detective heart sing. The energy in the air transformed into a bubbling cauldron of anticipation, a palpable sense that we were all part of something greater, something utterly ridiculous yet refreshingly liberating. "Join us, Karen. Together we can redefine what being a part of this community means," I appealed, casting a hopeful glance her way. "You might even discover the knack for painting fence flamingos you never knew existed inside you." The crowd chuckled yet again, emboldened and stirred by my words, but beneath the fervent laughter hummed a serious resonance. We were not merely mocking her rules. We were championing our newfound freedom, the most thrilling case of all, the liberation of humanity from monotonous conformity. Karen stood there, dynamic muscles of indignation gradually transforming into subtle quivers of contemplation. Perhaps for the first time, the ruling queen might be reconsidering her ironclad grip on our lives, a gripping drama reaching its climax. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish trying to breathe on dry land, caught in the whirlpool of chaos we had unleashed. "All right," she finally uttered, though it seemed as if the word had been pried from her with immense effort. Was this the turn of events I had long campaigned for? Forging a sense of belonging, unity, and creativity out of sheer absurdity? What would this transformation mean for the fabric of our community and for Karen herself? The audience leaned in, breathless with anticipation, bound by curiosity and hope. Would she stand by her rules, ignorant of the beauty blooming around her, or take a step into the light of flexibility and expression? The answer hung tantalizingly in the balance. Would she or wouldn't she? The moment hung heavy in the air, saturated with the tension of unspoken possibilities and the flickering flame of identity. Could Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of all things tedious, give in to this boisterous tide of excitement? Around me, the crowd buzzed with hopeful murmurs, as if each one was a tiny flare in the night, collectively igniting a bright corner of the neighborhood. I softly leaned forward, anticipation swirling within me, like the giddy fear of waiting for the headliner of a concert to step on stage. "Come on, Karen. This could be your shiny moment. Don't you want to be central to this fabulous revival?" The question danced in the air, sparking glances of camaraderie among my neighbors, igniting a unified push towards change. Karen, seemingly trapped in a soap opera reel of her own making, hesitated. The pamphlet she clutched had now become a limp piece of paper, with its power waning like an old magician's vanishing act. A transformation within her was brewing, like a dish that had been simmering just right. If only I could pop some popcorn and watch the spectacle unfold. Would she yield to the infectious spirit of reinvention that was sweeping over our little enclave? The corners of her mouth were twitching like they were grappling with an unseen force, torn between strict order and spontaneous joy. "Maybe some changes could be acceptable," she muttered, her voice barely rising above the collective gasps of disbelief and astonishment. In that beautiful moment of vulnerability, I could almost see the hardened layers of Karen's dictatorship cracking. It was as if the frost over a winter landscape was being gradually melted by the warmth of community camaraderie. Encouraged, I swiftly crafted a tangible vision for this new world order. Think about it, Karen. By mixing your enforcement skills with a dash of creativity, we could offer workshops that not only educate but uplift. Community talent shows could inspire connections like never before. My passionate rhetoric flowed like a grand estate stream, wider and deeper with each point. Watching her process the possibilities was akin to observing a caterpillar transform in real time. Would a butterfly emerge, or would she retreat back into her oppressive cocoon? And then, out of nowhere, like a plot twist straight from a telenovela, Karen's face softened, her brow peeling away layers of tyrannical displeasure. Community talent shows? She echoed, her tone almost flirtatious with the idea. The applause from neighbors yet again rippled through the air, a tapestry woven with hope and ambition. There I was, standing on the precipice of revolution while her solemnity crumbled around us, and my heart thumped wildly with the thrill of realization. That's right. Imagine seeing Tim here, rocking out a song while also showcasing some of that undeniable authority, or maybe even painting those flamingos you seem so skeptical of. My smile matched the crescendos of delight that filled the air, intensifying as I added, "You could even channel your inner Picasso." By this time, the tone of the gathering was a wild cocktail of anticipation, bubbling and fizzing, waiters at a five-star restaurant taking orders for dreams. Karen, facing a crossroads, took a deep breath, a considerative puff that echoed among the spectators. "Well, I guess we could at least try it for a season." The words spilled from her like candy from a torn bag, both sweet and surprising. A spontaneous cheer exploded from the audience, and like a wave crashing against the shore, they surged forward, embracing her fragile concession. It was here, in this fray of jubilance, that I saw a new title reflected in her now lively demeanor: Co-Guardian of Creativity. As impromptu dances erupted in the streets, I felt the ambition that had sparked this odyssey in me. The realization that each skeptic could transform into an advocate of joy was utterly addictive. Tim, nearly bouncing on his toes, chimed in with infectious energy. "We could even have a festivus for the rest of us in December." He thrust his hands in the air as if calling forth the very gods of merriment. The wheels of our neighborhood had truly begun to turn, each spoke carrying the hopes and dreams of the community, with Karen now, unexpectedly, at our helm. This was the sweet thrill of victory over mediocrity, and each laugh shared, each idea grasped, solidified our kinship against the relentless tide of dull conformity. And as the horizon painted our neighborhood in hues of whimsical charm, laughter soon became the fabric of our revitalized existence. "So tomorrow, shall we meet again to brainstorm?" I offered, my voice wrapped in excitement. Karen nodded slowly, almost reverently, as if letting go of a long-held squabble meant cracking open yet another tube of happiness. Yes, we were paving roads toward laughter, one flamingo at a time. With the burden of entitlement tumbling off our shoulders like dead weight, we were officially a community no longer confined by petty lore, but thriving in vibrant support and maddening creativity. After all, who knew that a simple get-together could wield such power to inspire fundamental change? Indeed, the absurd had triumphed over the ordinary, and my heart hummed joyfully with the amazing prospect of morning brainstorming.